It's not easy being a big pink loser. Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 worst things that happened to Patrick Star. Before we begin, we publish new content every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. For this list, we're recounting some of the worst blunders and circumstances from the show and movies ever to befall SpongeBob's best friend Patrick. These can either be due to his own buffoonery or just bad luck. If you haven't seen any of these unfortunate incidents, expect spoilers.
Next, I suppose you'll want me to go square dancing with Patrick.
Sorry, Patrick.
Number 10. Getting beaten up by himself. SpongeBob wants to prove he's tough enough to get into the salty spittoon. But to put it bluntly, he's a weenie.
Don't be silly. He's not bothering anybody. I mean, not like that guy.
Who, me?
Patrick decides to help him out by staging a fake fight to make SpongeBob look good. He lands one good punch out of anger, but then proceeds to beat himself up, and he isn't holding back. While it is kind of funny, it's also unsettling to watch Patrick wail into himself and toss himself around. It starts to look less like he's beating himself up and more like some invisible bully is kicking his butt.
Wow, you destroyed that guy without even touching him.
In the end, the plan works, and SpongeBob gets into the club. But we're all left concerned about the damage Patrick can bring onto himself. Number 9. Accused of the perfect crime. While visiting the Bikini Bottom Zoo, SpongeBob throws a peanut at Clamu, the giant oyster, unintentionally harming her. Patrick investigates to find the jerk that upset Clamu, only to have himself be accused and arrested by the police.
Wow, you guys are good. I'm the last person I would have suspected, but I was looking for me all the time.
Being the gullible doofus he is, Patrick doesn't try to defend himself, and just goes along with it, allowing himself to be chained up and pelted with peanuts by angry zoo patrons. While he's been accused of being a jellyfish net thief or mistaken for a corporate spy, Patrick's too naive to be a true criminal, so having him arrested for something he didn't do is just wrong.
Hold your peanuts! Patrick Star is innocent!
Thankfully, SpongeBob isn't keen on letting his best friend take the fall for his misdoings. Number 8. SpongeBob abandons him. SpongeBob wants to live in the wild with the jellyfish. While the others shrug it off saying he'll be back, Patrick takes it the hardest, believing that he's truly lost his best friend.
I miss you. Sandy misses you. Even Squidward misses you.
He begs his absorbent buddy to come home, but to no avail. Heartbroken, he then tries to catch SpongeBob, only to once again leave unsuccessful, and eyes full of tears.
So this is the way it's gonna be. I hope you're happy.
These two have been best friends forever, so the idea of his little buddy abandoning him is just too much for Patrick to bear. Although SpongeBob comes back afterward, the poor starfish would only receive more heartbreak later on when Gary the snail only hangs around him for treats. Patrick may be a dunce, but he needs love too.
Gary? I thought what we had was special!
Number 7. Pelted by dodgeballs. Patrick enters a contest to have his poem made into a song. But while he's brainstorming lyrics, he flashes back to when he wrote a poem as a schoolboy.
Roses are blue, violets are red. I have to go to the bathroom.
It was pretty bad, and he got pelted with dodgeballs for it. To be fair, he probably shouldn't have been reading it in the middle of gym class, but that day was traumatic enough to scar him to this very day, and almost stops him from trying to write his song.
It's like beans and bacon, and smells like it's been canned.
What's worse is that when he finally gets his masterpiece made, everyone except SpongeBob hates it, forms an angry mob against him, and pelts him with dodgeballs again in the end. For his own health's sake, maybe Patrick should just avoid creative writing altogether. Number 6. Mistaken for Pinhead Larry. SpongeBob and Patrick end up trapped inside Sandy's snowbound tree dome while she's hibernating. It seems like winter fun at first, until they're soon terrorized by a sleepwalking, bulked-up Sandy who confuses the two for Texas criminals named Dirty Dan and Pinhead Larry.
Which one of you fellers is the real Dirty Dan?
Patrick gets it particularly bad as Sandy rips the top of his head off and smacks him around. To make matters worse, the door is frozen shut, so all they can do is nearly freeze to death until spring.
Is it spring yet?
They manage to survive the winter by shaving Sandy and using her fur for warmth, but boy are they in trouble when spring finally arrives. Major life lesson for our favorite idiots: stay away from Sandy's home during the winter. Number 5. Stuffed in a tuna can. Patrick takes SpongeBob to the carnival, which is really a field full of fisherman hooks hoping to snag a bite. Patrick, not knowing any better, keeps playing on the hooks and pressuring SpongeBob to do the same, despite Mr. Krabs' warnings.
The hooks! No, no, no!
1, 2, 3.
In the end, while SpongeBob learns his lesson, Patrick isn't as lucky. He's shipped back home in an oversized tuna can after getting snagged by the hooks off screen.
Oh, does somebody have a can opener?
Sad to say, but it serves Patrick right for not heeding Mr. Krabs' advice, peer pressuring his friend, and trying to push his luck. The only thing that's more painful than getting vacuum packed into a tuna can is getting crammed into a trombone. Number 4. Patrick fights Neptune. While visiting the Fry Cook Museum, SpongeBob effortlessly pulls the golden spatula out of the ancient Greece. But King Neptune doesn't believe he's worthy of being called the Royal Fry Cook.
She is the new Royal Fry Cook, and you...
Patrick calls the king out on his stubbornness, only to get literally burnt by the almighty god. Unfortunately, Patrick never knows when to quit, so he continues to jeer Neptune while singing SpongeBob's praises, only to get burnt worse and worse until he's nothing but a crispy smudge on the floor.
500 challenges!
Enough!
We'll settle for one.
Neptune eventually fixes him, only to accidentally rearrange his face. While it's noble of Patrick to stand up for his best friend, he really needs to learn to keep his mouth shut, especially when arguing with a god. Number 3. Dr. Patrick's suds treatment. When SpongeBob comes down with the suds, Patrick tries to cure him to save his buddy from going to the horrible, horrible doctor's office. But Dr. Patrick is a huge quack.
It appears as though we'll have to plug up these holes.
When he sees that the actual doctor isn't so bad, Patrick pretends to have the suds too so that he can get a lollipop. He's then given a special treatment, which involves him being used for cleaning a cactus and a toilet, and screaming in discomfort and terror.
Hey, wait! Ouch! That hurts!
While Patrick shouldn't have impersonated a doctor, he was just really worried about his best friend and wanted to protect him, even though he was seriously misguided and could have avoided a lot of grief if he didn't get involved. Number 2. Pat pays for his hat. Patrick wants a work hat of his own, so he gets a job at the Krusty Krab. Unfortunately, the hat causes him to keep falling on his face.
He's nervous.
Seeing his buffoonery attracting customers, Mr. Krabs makes him the main attraction, charging patrons to watch him fall down and hurt himself.
Keep up the good work, Patrick!
You got it, Mr. K.
Despite the brain trauma and injuries his new job causes him, poor Patrick doesn't want to give it up, because it makes him feel like a winner. What's worse is that he's eventually fired for surviving a deadly stunt that could have maimed him.
You'll never wear this hat again.
Patrick, you okay?
Well,
It's for the best, as not even someone as dopey as Patrick should be forced to work in a toxic workplace that cashes in on their suffering. Before we unveil Patrick's greatest tragedy, here are a few dishonorable mentions.
M-O-O-N. That spells moon. I'll send you, Quickster.
What's in that box, anyhow?
My wallets.
Ah!
No, SpongeBob, tickle him.
Frozen Krabby Patty commercial, take one.
And action!
Frozen Krabby Patties.
Cut! Little yellow bugs.
I think he means you, SpongeBob.
Yes?
Number 1. Nearly dying at Shell City. In the series' first feature film, SpongeBob is on a mission to retrieve King Neptune's crown. Patrick goes with him, but they both end up in a literal out-of-water predicament when they're abducted by a diver that they believe is a Cyclops.
This doesn't look too good, Patrick.
He places them under a heat lamp where they slowly shrivel up and dry out, basically dying. This is not only the most tragic moment for Patrick, but it also shows him at his most loyal, following his buddy on a perilous journey halfway across the ocean and sticking by him even in their seemingly final hours as the life is dried out of them.
We did all right for a couple of goofballs.
And nothing less than a miracle or their friendship can bring them back. Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.